Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here today, especially because this specific SDG that we call urban SDG is quite new, is innovative when we look at the others. The others are more classical, let's say, energy, economy, poverty, etc. But dealing with urban issues, some call it as a cross-cutting issues, cross-cutting problems or solutions, obviously. And in the discussions we had, the state members had with the UN, defining the new development goals, it was quickly, all state members quickly agreed on the fact that to treat urbanization as a cross-cutting issue and spread urban issues across separate goals would have failed to mobilize cities or ULBs or address the essential role that urbanization must play in terms of sustainable development. State members are key actors implementing and defining and implementing those development goals, but we always have to think also in terms of other authorities, state and cities authorities. They have a key role also to play in sustainable development. So having a specific target, a specific goal dealing with urbanization is more than welcome. More than welcome because also 5-6 years ago only, for the first time, the planet, the Earth, we became more urbanized than we see more population living in urban areas than in rural areas. And that we will not see any, it will not revert. It, for sure, the urbanization will be more and more important. And looking at India, what is interesting is that India is among the less urbanized country in the world. Even China, they turned over 50% urbanization like 5 years ago. Here we are still about 33% of urbanization rate. But obviously, India will be catching up. And quoting Yuri, the resident coordinator, having India dealing with the SDG is a must. Is the same for this urban target, this urban SDG, because according to UN statistics data, most of new urban dwellers in the next 20 years will be in India. So again, India has a key role to play in terms of urbanization, key role and key challenges. I don't want to go through technical in that sense neither, but obviously it's a partnership that has to be done in order to achieve this SDG. Partnership between authorities, as I said, central, state and local authorities, they all have a specific role, but also partnership with private sector. Because when you define what is a city, it's mainly houses, it's mainly streets, and it's mainly amenities and basic services. Most of them are whether provided or whether built by the private sector. I didn't mention mobility. I assume that our colleague from BMW will be talking about mobility also, which is a key aspect. But if we look at the different targets at this urban SDG, it has been trying to cover most of the urban aspects. So the first one is should be not only engine of growth, it should be also the place where you have more equity, where you have more inclusiveness. So local bodies and state authorities will have a key role to play in that terms in order that no more informal settlement should be allowed in the next 20 years. All citizens, all urban areas should be included in the investment plans, in the urban plans. There's a specific target related to transport. I'm sure our colleagues from BMW will be tackling this issue. It's important. Again, sustainability means, in terms of urban issues, that we cannot rely only on private transport. So public transport is a must in the new cities and the upcoming cities. I like to quote the former mayor of Bogota, who was saying in Spanish for sure, that we do evaluate the quality of a city, or the growth of a city, not on the number of people, the number of poor people who owns a car. We do evaluate the well-being of a city by number of rich people who are using public transportation. I think this is a way to, some objective to tackle that. Without public transport, it's very hard to have a city sustainable on a long-term perspective. Planning, it's important. Here again, ULBs has a key role to play, and state also. Planning and management. And when we're talking about plan, it's about land use mostly. How do we use the land at city level? Again, public authorities has a key role to play, but private sector have also to play fair rules about this issue. I like to give, in that sense, the land use, the example of Manhattan, New York. Manhattan, obviously, it's a neighborhood, it's not a city. But I'd like to ask to the audience how many, what is the percentage of Manhattan, of land in Manhattan that is public space? Manhattan is the heart, the capital of capitalists, so we would assume that most of the land over there is private. But actually, more than 50% of land in Manhattan is public. If you look at the land in slums, in favelas in Brazil, in Nairobi, in India, most of the data shows that public lands in informal settlements between 1 to 5%, which means that public lands is good for the livability, is good for the wealth of the city, is good for the private sector. If you have good public lands, if you have well-designed, secure public lands, public space, you are creating value for the private plots, for the private lands. So it's very important to give the power to local authorities, to public authorities, to correctly manage the land use. Talking about land use, also in terms of sustainability, I think we have to get rid of those specialized area where we have in some corner of the city, industrial area, residential area. What we are proning is that with this, through this SDG, urban SDG, is a mixed use of land, where in the same area, people can work, can do their shopping, can live also. It's very important. Another issue is natural disaster. Cities have to deal with that. They have to be resilient, so they have a specific role to play in terms of dealing and preparing, bracing themselves for natural disaster. Other topic is air quality and waste management. This is a key issue if we want sustainable city, if we want good quality of life. Again, a partnership between private sector and local authorities is a must. And finally, let's say as a specific target related to this urban SDG is the safety, inclusiveness of the city. I was talking about the public space. So if those public spaces are well designed at street level with good lighting, we have new technology now which is make much more cheaper with the LED technology. If we have public space, parks, playgrounds, that are more secure, livability of cities will be improving for sure. That being said, yeah, again, we're coming back with the same, that in terms of implementing that at city level or at state level, it's a combination of finance, obviously, technology, again, where the private sector is so important, and capacity building. And taking into account that in that case, we really need a what we call multi-stakeholder partnership at city level, where local authorities have to deal, have to listen, have to decide with private sector and with communities, with civil society. That's the way that we can have sustainable cities. Thank you.